Welcome back to engineering exercise. Today we're going to do a 10-minute lower body stretching routine. This routine is a perfect, quick, and effective way to hit your adductors, your IT band, your hip flexors, and your quads all in 10 minutes. This workout can be a perfect lower body mobility day. This can be perfect if you just want some stretches. I like to do the stretching in front of the TV, but don't let it fool you. This workout can also be a great extended cool down and stretch if you just did a leg day or something like a run. The only thing you'll need for this workout is an optional exercise mat, and I'll show beginner and advanced modifications throughout. Let's go ahead and get started. Right, I'm gonna go ahead and get my timer started, and first thing we're gonna start off with is a kneeling hip flexor stretch. 2, 1. So I have my right foot forward. I'm keeping my right knee and my back knee at a 90-degree angle. I'm remembering to scoop my pelvis down and under. I'm not letting myself stick into an anterior pelvic tilt position like this. I am pressing into the ball of my big toe and my heel on my right foot to really activate that glute and to get that hip flexor stretch on the other side. One thing you can do here is also to press your hands into that quad to really kind of force yourself upward, and really feel that stretch. Now, in any stretch, you always want to work through a range of motion that feels good. It should never feel painful. All right, first stretch done. Now we're going to switch sides and do the same thing on the opposite leg. So I'm going to get my left leg forward, keep it at 90 degrees. And like I was saying before, with any stretch, you want to work through a range of motion that might be a little bit uncomfortable, but is never painful. All right, so another thing in this position, you want to make sure your hips are in a straight line. So that means you're not like deviating to one side or the other, and that typically means pushing your front hip back and your kneeling leg forward. I know that can be a little confusing, but I'll put arrows in at the end. With anything that's kneeling, and things you can do to protect your kneecap are to try to put your pressure on that upper part of your kneecap closer to where your thigh muscle is, and to also double up your mat as well. I really love this mat because it's extra cushiony, but if it wasn't, I'd definitely be doing that. All right. Next up, we're going to be doing a kneeling adductor stretch. So we're going to start on our right leg. I'm going to stick my right leg out, point my toes towards the ceiling, and now I'm going to hinge backward from my hips and lean back. So you should feel this in your adductor or your inner thigh muscle. So the biggest mistake I see people make in the stretch is that they don't understand how to hinge from their hips. So let me show you what I mean. When I'm moving back, it's my hips that are moving. I'm not falling forward like this. I'm not rounding through my shoulders. I'm imagining somebody's pushing me back at the hips to get down. I personally, you can't see this, but I like to keep my stretching leg toes pointed as well. I am also trying to keep my hips in a straight line and keep my back flat. All right, now we're gonna do this on the other side. So we're gonna stay in this kneeling position. We're gonna keep our hips in a straight line. We're gonna stick our left leg out, toes pointed up. You can see way better from this angle. 3, 2, 1. I'm hinging from my hips. Look at my shoulders, they're not moving. Now put my hands down on the ground and I'm gonna feel this stretch in my left inner thigh. Again, same hacks for being nice to your kneecaps as I mentioned before. And if you want to make this a little bit more intense, you can always rock. So if I want to rock all the way back to my butt, I could. Also, another handy tip to keep your hips in a straight line is to check to see if your nose and your belly button are in a straight line. So that's one way to kind of check if you're really deviating to one side. Like here, I couldn't draw a straight line between my nose and my belly button, but here I can. All right. Next, we're going to do a twisting hurdler stretch. So we're going to sit on our mat. We're going to extend our right leg out behind us. And we're going to keep our left leg in this 45-degree angle position. So we're going to reach over and we're going to twist our left side over. Now, if the twist is too much for you, feel free to keep it here. Going down is too much for you, keep it here as well. One thing I try very hard to do in the stretch is to pin my tailbone down to the mat. So that means I'm not letting my tailbone come off the mat, which keeps the stretch in my leg rather than in my lower back. Now, sometimes if your lower back's like chronically tight, you might not be able to get there and you might feel this there. You'll always feel the stretch in the part of your body that is the tightest. All right, now we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. So I'm gonna keep my right leg in the 45-degree angle position. I'm gonna extend my left leg out. I'm gonna try to point those toes to get a little extra out of this. And I'm gonna work on keeping my tailbone glued to the mat. So I'm gonna go ahead and reach over. I'm gonna try to grab my toes. If you can only go this far, also fine. If you're like me and this is your tighter side, this is gonna feel a little bit more awkward. I can't get my arm up quite as high, but again, find what works for you here. Another way you can make this easier for yourself is to double up the mat while you're sitting under it. So if you want to like fold it in half, that can be super helpful. This you might also feel a little bit in your side body, which is great because it kind of can get at tight lats and tight hips at the same time. So big fan. All right, next we're going to lie down on our mat and we're going to do a figure 4 stretch. So figure 4 stretch, it's one of my favorites. It'll really get into that IT band. So I'm gonna take my right leg, I'm going to cross it over my left leg, and I'm going to grab on either to my hamstring or my calf. One thing you don't want to do here is grab your kneecap. No, that's wrong. What you want to do instead is grab that hamstring or that calf wherever you feel the stretch the most. Today, I'm feeling it in my hamstring, so I'm going to keep it there. One thing you can do to try to make this more intense is to point that toe up towards the ceiling. This is one of my favorites if you've been sitting all day because it really gets at that IT band. This is also great after like a HIIT workout or a run because it really hits that part of your body. All right, we're gonna repeat again on the left side. All right, so here we can either grab our shin or our hamstring. We don't want to grab our knee, and we're going to keep those left toes flexed. So that can help us feel that stretch just a little bit more. Again, here you want to watch the position of your hips. You want to do what you can to keep them in a straight line. Sometimes if you don't feel a stretch, like check your alignment. There's so many things we can do throughout our day-to-day that can take us more out of alignment than we might think. And if we're not in alignment, then we're kind of just forcing ourselves into a position where we don't feel things. So the more we can force ourselves to these 90-degree angles and to keep our hips and shoulders in a straight line, the better off we're gonna be. All right, next we're gonna do a child's pose with a lat stretch, and our hands are gonna start in the 10 position on the clock. So I'm gonna do a wide-legged child's pose. Whatever child's pose you wanna do is completely up to you. So my knees are gonna be wide, and I'm gonna walk my hands out to the 10 position on a clock. So I'm walking my right arm out to the left. Now, child's pose is a position of rest, and I also particularly really like this variation because it targets both your hips and lower body and your upper body. So if you have tight lats and tight hips, this is a great way to get them both at once. Get the bang for your buck. Now you want to do what you can to drive your tailbone into your heels as well. That is always the toughest part of child's pose for me. All right, we are on to our last stretch. So we're gonna do the same thing we were doing before where our hands were at the 10 position. Now we're gonna move them to the 2 position on the clock. So my left hand is going to move to the right corner of my mat. All right. Again, this is something where you might have one side that's tighter than the other. Totally normal. Everybody has a tight side and a weak side. But what's most important here is that you find a range of motion that feels good. You shouldn't try to overcompensate on one side and go through like a huge range of motion on a side where you then can't go through a range of motion, because you want to try to keep things even, but find a position that feels good and that feels a little uncomfortable without being painful. 2, 1. All right. That was it. That was 10 minutes of lower body stretches that hit your hip flexors, your adductors, your IT band, and your quads. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That really helps with the algorithm and that really helps this channel grow. If you want to see more videos, that is the best possible thing you can do to support this channel. Thanks for working out with me, and I'll see you next week.